Good morning, guys. Just going to do a little quick overview today. I know we've talked a lot about health and exercise and diet and everything. I wanted to talk about habits and goals. It's something really important that we haven't touched on too much, and how to write goals and how to stick to them, and a little bit of the research around that. What is a goal? It's something that you're trying to achieve. Most of you guys know that. However, do you know how to write a good goal? Because physically writing it down is super important, but in order to have a powerful goal that you can actually reach, they need to actually fall into a category that is achievable. And so most people use the acronym SMART when they're talking about goals, and that's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time constrained. So an example of a goal, I wrote one down just to keep it simple for you guys, is that specificity is really important because we want to know what the goal is so we know if we're heading towards achieving it. So like a specific weight goal would be, I want to lose 5 pounds of body weight through improved nutrition and consistent exercise. That's really specific as to what you want to do. It's 5 pounds and how you're going to do it. Measurable, tracking the weight, that's measuring what you're trying to achieve. So that's really important as well. And you want your goal to be measurable, some kind of a milestone that you can tell whether or not you're heading towards your goal or away from it. Achievable, saying, hey, I'm going to lose 5 pounds is usually achievable to start. You can say, hey, I'm going to try and lose 1 or 1.5 pounds a week by creating a calorie deficit and eating healthy meals or exercising 4 times a week. Those are all achievable things that you could probably find in your day. You don't want to write a goal that's something that's unobtainable, like, hey, I want to lose 30 pounds in 2 weeks. There's no way you're going to reach a calorie deficit to do that unless if your BMI is extremely high, which is body mass index. If you're, an extremely high person with a really high basal metabolic load, you might be able to achieve that. But for the average person, it's just not possible. So making sure your goals are achievable is extremely important. Relevant or realistic. So losing 5 pounds, why is that relevant or realistic? Well, you want to achieve it within 4 weeks starting today because you're going to improve your energy, your mobility, your ability to perform exercise, your overall health. That's why the goal is relevant and realistic to you. And then time constraint or time bound. Setting a timestamp on something has been shown that basically that is one of the most important things. So saying, I'm going to get this done in this amount of time, it holds you consistent to that thing and it keeps you aiming towards that goal. If you don't have a time constraint on it, you're going to say like, oh, I'm going to lose 15 pounds. Okay, but when? When are we going to start? And when are we going to start working towards that? If you don't put a date on it, like let's say, I'm going to lose this in this amount of time, then you're likely to keep pushing it off and procrastinating. Most humans are procrastinators by nature, and we just have to kind of get over that. So a good example would be like, I will lose 5 pounds in 4 weeks by exercising 4 times a week, maintaining a calorie deficit through clean eating, and I will track my weight weekly to stay on my target. So that's like it's a good goal. It's got all the criteria, and physically writing it down is super important. So once you think you have your goal and you meet those 5 criteria, that SMART criteria that we talked about, then write it down. Maybe even write the milestones on how to get there down, and then track it every week if you want to be successful. Okay, and that leads me into like how to achieve a goal, and that's creating a habit. And habits are extremely important. And a habit is basically a behavior or action that you perform regularly and often automatically without needing much conscious thought about. And it should become part of your routine. Now, keep in mind that habits can be positive or negative. We think of a positive habit like, hey, I'm eating clean, I'm exercising regularly, I'm getting enough sleep. These are good habits. A negative habit might be like, I'm smoking, or I'm vaping, or I'm eating junk food multiple times a week. And habits are usually an unconscious thing. We start consciously, but they become unconscious. So you don't need conscious thought to have a habit. So how do we create good habits? It's kind of interesting. There's neuroplasticity involved, which is basically how the brain rewires to make you effective at doing what you want to do. So the first 6 weeks of forming a good habit, whether it be exercise or diet or one of these things, it involves a lot of conscious thought, which uses the prefrontal cortex, so the front part of your brain. Basically, if you want to exercise for the first 6 weeks, your brain, you're going to have to consciously tell yourself, I want to do this, I'm going to do this, and I need to do this. And that's just how our brains work. Now, after 6 weeks, we start seeing actually neurological changes in our thought process regarding that habit, which is really cool. The behavior starts shifting to the basal ganglia, which is basically the base part of the brain that doesn't require as much conscious thought. Usually, that transition starts at about 6 weeks with less complex habits. So that's things like I'm going to add a little bit of fruit each day to eat, or I'm going to do small things every day to try and improve my exercise, like push-ups. So that's why we always say start small, because those are things that'll set in faster. More complex things like I'm going to go to the gym 4 times a week, or I'm going to, eat clean all the time. Usually these take a little bit longer than 6 weeks, but that's your baseline for when the habit goes from conscious to unconscious thought. And you might have known these people or seen these people that have really good habits that, like, let's say they skip the gym, they're going to be irritated. Like their brain is literally telling them, it's not that they're like irritated because I'm upset because I didn't get to the gym because I'm not going to reach my goal. No, the brainstem, the basal ganglia of your brain is telling them they're missing something. It's like if you forget your car keys or your wallet somewhere, you have this tingling kind of weird feeling like, oh no, where did I leave this? Because it's a habit that you grab those every day. It's that annoying to people that have good health habits. And that's where we want to get you. We want to get you to those good, positive, unconscious habits that it bothers you if you miss eating clean or if you don't hit the exercise goals that you're trying to hit. And they don't have to be extreme, they can be simple, but we want to start forming those habits quickly. That way, that has to do with the time constraint part of goals. You want to get in there as quickly as you can, start these habits so that 6 weeks from now, they're starting to go from conscious to unconscious thought. And that brings me to one of my favorite quotes of all time, which is attributed to Aristotle. And I'm going to read it just to make sure I don't mess it up, because I sometimes do. And that's we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. So if we think about that, excellence is not an act, which means you didn't just wake up and win a gold medal, right? You didn't walk out one day and run a marathon. It's a habit. It's something you do every day, consciously or unconsciously, depending on how long you've been doing it, to work towards your goals. So I think that's really important. And I think that's something that everybody needs to incorporate in some way in their lives. Even if it's a diet, that's kind of one that's something that a lot of people want to work on. We'll talk about calorie deficits another time and how to lose weight if that's something you're interested in, or how to gain muscle if that's something you're interested in. Exercise, super important. Getting those 3 to 5 days in a week of dedicated time to exercise. And then self-reflection and journaling is kind of important for a lot of people as well. That's also a habit that goes from conscious to unconscious. They talk about this in modern therapy a lot. It has to do with like, okay, I need to reflect on myself. Some people do it through meditation. Usually it takes a lot of conscious thought to get into that zone, write something down, 3 positive things, something like that. But then it becomes unconscious. It's like, oh, if I don't do this, it's going to bother me. But anyways, guys, I just wanted to sit down and talk about what the difference is between goals and habits and how they're both super important for staying on track with your health. I hope this has been helpful. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.